Welcome to Behind the Helm. We are so happy you're here with us. The show features myself and Petty Officer Dowden. We work together in Indiana as Navy recruiters. We created the show with the intention to help bring together the past, present, and future personnel of the military to help build a better understanding of what it's like to actually be a part of it. So you'll see anything from like interviews to video reactions or just personal stories of our own to help guide those who have interest in learning more about what the military has to offer and what it takes to make the ultimate sacrifice to serve your country. This podcast can be found on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, and live on Facebook every Thursday at 4 p.m. And that's facebook.com/behindthehelm. So don't forget to like, share, and follow the show so you never miss out on an episode. And thank you to everyone here who supports us. Enjoy. Whoa. Oh, I didn't even know you got the glasses on.
Yeah.
Man. Welcome to Behind the Helm, like you heard before. Got some new stuff going on here. If this is your first time watching live, maybe you didn't see the past video on YouTube. You know, we got the studio. As you can see now, we have this wonderful overlay. We have a mustache present.
That's right. I'm going for that 70s Chips look. Excuse me. Can I get your license and registration, please?
I think it looks really good. I kind of like the glass. Are you gonna wear the glasses the whole time?
I have to. Otherwise, look. This looks like authority. You ready? Watch this.
Yeah, that doesn't work.
Yeah, this creeper. It's for I have a fantasy football draft this weekend with some people who don't know me so well, and as some of you may know, I may or may not dress up as a famous person. So I don't want to put it out in case they see it, but it maybe I'll get some pictures of it. But yeah, this is our first live video in the new studio that we kind of procured. And if you're listening to this, obviously, later on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, you're not getting to see this. So make sure you follow that Linktree link, so that you can get to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube later, YouTube too, so you can see it there. But definitely, that all comes up tomorrow at 4.
Tomorrow at 4, you'll be able to see it on all other platforms. But if you're here right now.
And download the podcast, so you can download it.
That's right,
but you'll miss out on that. We got a little extra.
Yeah, a little extra. If you're here right now, you're in for the entire thing. So
that's right.
Strap on in. Go
exciting.
ahead. And if this is your first time here, it's good to see you.
Yep.
Good to see you, finally. If this is your 25th time here.
Yeah.
Man, it's
crazy.
It's good to see you, man. It's good
crazy.
to have a seat. I know you haven't seen us in a little bit.
Would really like if you're here, make sure you smash that like button. Make sure you smash that comment button. Tell us what you think of this new border that we have, the new logo. We love it. If you trash it, you're probably gonna make Petty Officer Levesque cry. He's so proud of it. He's been like a kid. You've been like a kid in the candy store, man, all week. You've been so excited.
I've been very proud of the changes and very, very happy with the way things are looking and going.
Because I kind of look like just ridiculous dad right now. I'm just gonna say, I'm proud of you. And I picked you up from school today.
You did pick me up from Anderson
It's weird.
High School, yeah. So
it
was a
weird.
good time. So today, what are we getting into? Putney here says, loving the new look. Casual Thursday for P.O. Dowden?
No, I just changed out of uniform. I have a PT that goes on directly after this. And, we like to, in the show, we like to wear different uniforms or different things to kind of just highlight ourselves as well, whether we're in our camis or today you're in your dress whites, man, looking fresh.
You know what I'm saying?
I
mean, maybe I showed out too much for you.
A little bit.
I'm serious. Maybe I'm seriously overdressed.
No,
not
at all.
Not in the whites, baby.
Not at all.
Not
but before you get into what we're doing today, just real quick, we got to pay homage to the Eagle. Homage to the Eagle. So today I brought him a little gift. It's miniature brass eagle size. That is Sauvage by Dior. Want that eagle smelling fresh?
You don't pop smoke, right? Huh? Christian Dior.
There you go, buddy. So we said it'd grow, and we're growing. That's where it starts, right there.
All right. So today we're gonna be interviewing with a friend of mine from Virginia. His name's Don Nichols, and he's a retired Airforce officer. Went from enlisted to officer.
Yep.
He's had a pretty interesting life.
Yeah.
Has a lot of cool life experiences. And he's waiting by right now if you want to just go ahead and jump into that.
And right before we do that, I just want to say, like, the big thing again, like, this isn't just about Navy, but this is something that is you can do in the Navy as well. You can go from enlisted to officer. So I think his story is going to be great. I can't wait to meet him and hear what he has to say. A very inspirational man. So let's meet him.
All right, let's go and move that over. How you doing, Don?
Good, thanks. How are you?
I'm good. Hey, we obviously have to talk about the beard.
Love it.
and the virtual background, we all love that too.
Is that a virtual background? That's where I want to be.
It is a virtual background. So this beard, let me see if I can show you something. We hadn't planned this, but let's see if I can do it. All right, that's me. It's me when I was an associate administrator at the National Nuclear Security Administration. I changed a little bit since then.
I was going to ask if that was like Air Force regulation or not. I don't think it is.
No, I don't think so. Sorry about that.
No, you
yeah, so I had a beard before I joined the Air Force. As we'll probably talk about a little later, being in the Air Force was not really my plan. But after I got out of the Air Force, I grew it back, shaved it off, and then my granddaughter had only known me with my beard, and she loved it. And after I shaved it off, she told me she wanted me to grow it back, and that was all the encouragement I needed. So I have this has been going now for about 2.5 years to get to this point.
Yeah, I think
in
had
the summertime, I got to do something to keep it off my chest. It gets way too hot.
Yeah.
So braiding it's a good option, and I tell the kids I'm Captain Hook, and
I think that's why Santa Claus probably lives at the North Pole. It's because the beard's too hot in the summer, maybe.
Yeah, I think so. Probably so.
So since you said you had a beard before you joined, does that mean, like, I don't know your entire story, but so you didn't join then right out of high school, I take it. You were probably a little late, or were you just one of those guys that could grow a beard at 16?
No, I went on to college and dropped out of college and went to work as a lumberjack for a while and did some tree work and
have to have a beard as a lumberjack.
Joining the beard kind of fit in with the whole outdoors thing.
Yeah.
When it's 30 degrees below zero in the mountains of Pennsylvania, which happened when I was working as a logger, that was having the beard was kind of nice. But joining the Air Force wasn't a natural thing for me. I was far more likely to be in a peace march carrying "Make Love Not War" signs. So that wasn't really the part of the plan.
Yeah. So what was it for you that basically, why did you join the Air Force? Mm-hmm. Because it does seem like you did take a 180.
Yeah, and I'd like to say that it was my great idea, and because it really worked out great for me. And being in the military really, and I'll tell you a little more about that. But being in the military really helped me a lot. But it wasn't my plan. I'll just briefly. I just felt like it was something that God wanted me to do. And so when I then decided I was going to do it, I decided, well, if that's the reason I'm doing it, I'm going to do it as best as I can, because I don't think at that point in my life I'd ever really done anything as good as I felt that I could. So I decided that I was going to go in and I was going to do it to the very best of my abilities and see how high I could fly.
Wow. And what was your job in the Air Force
when you first came in?
So I started out enlisted. I had a little bit of college, so I came in as an E3, and I got shipped off to England after I became an aircraft mechanic, and I got shipped off to England, and I spent almost 3 years at Lakenheath in England, working on F-111F aircraft. At the time, I was working in phase maintenance, turning wrenches and stabbing myself with safety wire. Yeah. And I heard about this program called the Airmen's Education and Commissioning Program. I'm sorry, hang on just a minute. Let me turn this phone off.
While you're doing that, we have one. It's called Seaman to Admiral.
Yeah, so we have a Seaman to Admiral program, which is probably going to be very similar to what you're going to talk about here. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it is. In fact, I ran into some of those guys when I was in my program. So I heard about a program called, actually two programs. One was called Bootstrap TDY, and the other one was called the Airmen's Education and Commissioning Program. Bootstrap TDY was great. If you were close to meeting some sort of milestone, like finishing your college degree. And I had some college already. They would send you off for maybe a couple of months. I'm not sure what the limits are nowadays, but you could go off for a couple of months and just take classes. And so when I was in England, they offered classes in math and physics at the Ramstein Air Force Base. And I had to pay my way there, and I had to pay my expenses while I was there. But essentially, I was relieved of duty until I got back, and all I had to do was go to school there. So I packed up and I went over there to get as much stuff as I could taken care of, and get to where I could qualify for what was called the Airforce Officers Qualifying Test. Right, I had to go and take the test that you test to see whether or not you can get accepted into the officer corps. So I did my schooling. I went over and I worked hard, came back, took the test, applied for what's called the Airmen's Education Commissioning Program, and I got picked up for that right after I tested for E5. And I made E5. I got notified that I made E5 right before I got notified I'd been accepted into the Airmen's Education
Wow. So
Commission.
I mean, most times when we see people who convert, while we're at least from what I've seen in the Navy, I guess it comes down to people's work ethic and how bad
drive.
they want to actually convert and get into a commissioning program. Usually we see E6,
Even
just
E7, like
E7.
chief, petty officer, and above. Even
sometimes they they become a warrant officer a lot of times. So I mean, so were you on active duty status while you were going to school? Were you still getting paid from the Air Force while you were going to school?
Yes, I was. And but let me go back to what you just said about the drive.
Yeah.
I lived as an enlisted guy, and I saw how the officers lived, and I knew right away that life seemed to be much better as an officer than it was an enlisted guy. And it's just a real simple example, right? As an officer, you're sick. You call your boss. You say, "I'm sick. I'm not coming in." When I was enlisted, if I was sick, I had to go to the base hospital. I had to get a note from the doctor.
Yep.
And then take it to my boss and show it to my boss. It was kind of felt like being in elementary school or something. I had to show a note to the teacher to say that I really was sick, because officers didn't have to do that. And across the board, you saw similar things. The officers just had a much more responsibility. Now they had to live up to it, and they had to not take advantage of it. But it just seemed to be more of an adult way to be. And so I wanted to do that. I told you before, when I came in, I said I'd never really done anything to the best of my ability, and I attacked my military with that idea that I wanted to do this as good as I could. So, I worked hard at everything I did. When I got my professional skill knowledge tests and my job knowledge tests and had the textbooks, I spent an hour every day, 6 days a week, going over those the entire time that I was preparing for staff sergeant test, my E5 test.
Right.
And when I would see my boss doing something that I didn't think he should be doing, like pushing a broom, I'd go take a broom away from him. And I'd say, "Hey, look, when I become a boss, I don't intend to be pushing a broom. I'm not going to let you push a broom while I'm working for you." When there was a crap job, I'd volunteer for it. It got to the point where I didn't have to do crap jobs, because the boss I'd volunteer. He'd say, "No, Nichols, you're always volunteering for these," and you'd give it to somebody else.
Oh, there's so many. Yeah, there's a lot of examples of like that on the ship where, there's always that guy who's doing it. It's like, listen, man, we need someone else to come up here and do this job. Or how about you take him with you, or stuff like that.
I see two different mindsets there too. So like the fact that you had a leader that would push a broom shows that he was a good leader. One, we call that deck plate leadership, leading from the front. And then you having the initiative to say no, I know I'm the lowest man on the totem pole. I should be doing that. You have other things that you need to worry about. So I think that's a good outlook. And I think sometimes that gets pushed aside. A lot of entitlement sometimes, I don't want to do that. Well, somebody has to, at the end of the day, somebody has to do those things. And just real quick, again, make sure you smash that like button, comment down below if you have any questions for Don while we have him on. If you hear anything and you want to ask him, that's the best part about watching this show live, is that you can actually interact with us, compared to later you may not be able to. So anyway, Don, so you were aviation mechanic, and you were enlisted, going up for E5, make E5, find out the day that you find out that you're going to get commissioned as an officer, right? And then what did that process look like on the Air Force side? Like once you once they said, hey, you pass this test, you're going to commission, kind of what happened next for you?
So then you have to apply to go back to school, right? So I had to find a college or university that would accept me. And I was fortunate in that I had dropped out of Penn State. But before I dropped out of Penn State, I actually had fairly decent grades. And so I was able to get re-accepted at the Penn State into the engineering program. I did nuclear engineering. So I went there for 3 years. I got out of Penn State, went down to the officer training school, and spent, I think it was 12 weeks, I think it was, down there, going through the training to become an officer. And then I got commissioned. While I was at Penn State, an opportunity came up to get into a master's degree program. And so I went ahead and applied for that.
Wow.
And I got accepted. And so while I was paying back my time for going to do my undergraduate, I was working on my master's degree. And in both cases, all I had to do was go to school.
Yeah.
I left there, went down to Kirtland Air Force Base for a couple of years, and then I went back and did my PhD at the Air Force. Air Force Institute of Technology at Wright Pat Air Force Base.
Mm-hmm.
And so I spent 8 years of my tour. Almost half of my 20 years was spent going to school at the government's expense, and all I had to do was go to school.
Yeah,
it's great.
And that's part of that program. So obviously, like when you're in enlisted, especially all of them now, because and we didn't premise this, but what, if you don't mind, I'm just not gonna give away your age. I know You're not looking a day over 42, but what year did you enlisted side, and then what year was it when you started your commissioning process?
Okay, so I enlisted in 1981.
Okay.
And I went back to school. I came back to the States. I think it was in '84, and then I think that's right, '84. And then I graduated from Penn State in '87. You have to be commissioned by the time you're 30.
Right.
And at the time, that may still be the rule. And so I just barely squeaked in under that wire. I actually turned 30 while I was down at the Air Force Officer Training School.
So for us, there's different, and I think they've all changed, obviously. So we're talking it's a different time frame. Things have changed. It's become more prevalent, the education. There are different programs for different age groups, but like the Seaman to Admiral program, I know that I looked into it, didn't know as much about it that I wish I would have, and I'm too old. Like there's like a waiver, but I believe it's 32. You can get up to 32 with a waiver, but you have to be like commissioned before that time. But there's other programs. So, that's just, and it just shows your drive, right? So there are different programs.
Yeah.
Once you're an officer where you can continue on, you have that ability, but when you're enlisted, you can take classes with TA and you're still working while you're doing that, which also takes a lot of drive. And it just shows how much drive you had to push all the way to a PhD.
I always describe it as like the military has benefits that are kind of sitting here in front of you, and it's not all just handed to you. There's some things that are handed to you, like medical benefits and, your pay and raises and promotional opportunities. Those are handed to you. But some of the stuff, you have to be the one to work for it.
Right.
And I think Don's example is just...
Because at the end of the day, we still have a job to do. And that's like, hey, these benefits are here, but we need you to complete your job. So you have to have a lot of personal drive.
Yeah, and you mentioned waivers. One of the things that I learned going through the process, and I'll just give you the example. I was down at Kirtland Air Force Base. I wanted to come back to the PhD program, but I'd only been there for 2 years. While I was there, and you had to be on station for 3 years to even to be able to apply. While I was there, a guy who graduated with me from the master's program, after 2 years, got accepted to go back to do his PhD. And I'm like, hey, what? You can't even apply. Wait, how could you possibly get accepted? He said, oh, yeah, I knew I wasn't eligible. I applied anyway. In the military, everything, almost everything can be wavered one way or the other. And if you don't meet all the wickets, but they've got an empty slot, rather than let that slot go empty, oftentimes you can get wavered right into it. So if you're at a point where you're ready to go someplace, apply. And it doesn't hurt to apply. And most that happens is you get turned down. But you might be able to pick up a slot and get a waiver, where otherwise you might just have to sit back and hold your hands.
And I think the thing, just to latch into that, and the reason I ended up looking into the Seaman to Admiral, and it goes exactly with what you just said, was I worked for this Master Chief, and I had mentioned our kind of LDO program, or the Seaman to Admiral, and a comment that he had made to me was, and I tell this to all my future sailors, is the answer to every board that you do not apply for is 100% no. So don't be a dummy and apply for any advanced program you can. Not everybody even gets picked up the first time on those programs. You keep applying because it's only to better your life. And then, of course, I looked at him and said, well, you're a Master Chief and still enlisted, so why didn't you do that? And he said, well, that's a good question, because same thing. He didn't realize it till much later in his career, and it just wouldn't have made sense. So that's part of the reason that we do this, and part of the reason I really like to spend time with our future sailors and put that out to them, and part of the reason of this podcast, because it's not just about joining the Navy. It's not just about people out of the Navy. It's for people in too. Like, this information is great, and it's just as valid now as it was in the 80s. Both those first two dates that he said, I wasn't even a twinkle in my daddy's eye yet, and we still do that stuff.
Yeah.
So anyway, I just want to say, like, that's so relevant even now,
So you got your, you get your PhD, and, you said that the program you went into was a nuclear engineering program.
Right.
How did you use that degree while you were in the Air Force?
Well, that actually ended up being great. I went to work for the Defense Nuclear Agency, and then they and I got to travel to Russia. This was back when the wall was falling.
Wow!
And Russia was just
Is it
opening.
in the 80s? Like, you were in Russia?
Yeah.
Wow.
89 time frame, yeah. And I actually got to go over there and negotiate some of the first contracts for nuclear weapons technology, nuclear weapons related technology. It was some things that supported nuclear weapons programs.
Wow.
And then I got picked up to go to Los Alamos National Laboratory. I was there for 3 years. I worked with the weapons designers pretty much as if I were a staff member at the laboratory. I was running calculations on weapon design and stuff. It was great.
Wow.
It was one of the best jobs I ever had. I came back from there, and it ended up my tour at the Pentagon, pinned on major when I was there. I hit 20 when I was there, and I went ahead and got out right before 9/11. So I was still technically in the Air Force when just right that July, right before 9/11 happened. My last technical day in the military was July, and then September 1st rolled around right afterwards.
Wow.
So this is why I love your story, because you literally were a lumberjack, right? A lumberjack. And next thing you know,
like working in the mountains, cutting down trees.
And then next thing you know, you're working in the Pentagon. Los Alamos, is that, I don't want to be wrong. I could be wrong. Is that like Area 51? Isn't that what Los Alamos is?
No.
It's like near there. I thought it was like near there.
No.
What's in Area
Los
51,
Alamos
Don?
Yeah.
Los Alamos is in the middle of New Mexico. It's near Santa Fe, New Mexico. Area 51's out in Nevada at the Nevada test site.
Okay.
Good dodge on that question, though.
And I can't really tell you about the alien.
Love it.
Yeah.
So where are those? Where are the hidden silos at?
Wow, and you know what I'm thinking of too? I mean, this is kind of crazy, because he just said, he got out right before 9/11.
Yeah.
You were working in the Pentagon.
At that.
Right? Like right before you got out.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah. So I shifted and became a Fed, and I worked as civil service, and I went to work for an oversight organization, and then that oversaw the nuclear weapons complex, and then I worked for the part of the government that actually runs the nuclear weapons complex. It's called the National Nuclear Security Administration. I ended up as a senior executive there, kind of capped out in the pay band. I was an associate administrator, and then a deputy associate administrator with great big budgets and lots of people. So the neat thing about that is I spent 15 years in the federal government after I left the Air Force, but I went ahead and bought back my Air Force time, so that the time that I was working as a civil servant, I was drawing my Air Force retirement. And then when I retired as a SES, senior executive, they recalculated my retirement based on my entire period of time while I was in the military and working as a civil servant, but then using my high 3 as a senior executive. So it actually, it's a gift that gives a couple different times.
Yeah, that double, triple dipping. in the benefits, retirement, and stuff of that nature. Like, yeah, absolutely. I think that gets overlooked.
There's so much to unpack there. And like, if we like,
oh my God,
we're running more. I mean, we still got time, but I mean, there's so much to dive into that. But really, I think the main thing out of this, Don, is like I said before, where you were before to where you're at now. I mean, obviously, you're happily retired, I would imagine.
Right.
You know, but what would you say to anybody who was thinking of getting into a commissioning program, or were enlisted and thinking about doing it, or maybe somebody who already has a degree, and what that commissioning program looks like, and what would your advice be to them, just being in service?
So if you're talking about somebody that's already in the military, so they've already made that decision to go that route, it's I hate to use the trite phrase, but man, be all you can be. Figure out what you want to do, and figure out where you want to go and where you want to be, and then do everything you can to get there. And that can be being enlisted. There is not a thing wrong with being enlisted, and choosing an enlisted career and serving our country as an enlisted member. Lots of good friends that I had when I was enlisted, and great people, and the higher pay and the different responsibilities that officers have. That's not the only reason for living. It's not all about money. There's a lot to say about quality of life and loving what you're doing and enjoying what you're doing. But if you want to go that route, you just got to make it your goal, and don't let anything get in your way, and work hard and do your best to get there. If you haven't joined the military yet, I would suggest that joining the military so that you can get to go to school and get advanced degrees or whatever. That's not a great reason for joining the military. You join the military to serve your country, and because you may be killed. I mean, it is a life or death kind of organization, and we throw ourselves in harm's way to protect people that we love and care about here in the United States. And that's the number one thing that we're doing. There are many benefits that come along that you can take advantage of while you're on that way, and that's what I did. But really, you want to realize that that's what it's. The mission is what it's about, and we're here to defend. You may or may not get the opportunities that I got to advance. But
yeah, I think your story is just like, when I hear it, I go, that's one in a million.
That is one in and I think it comes down to your drive. Like you said, the military is mission oriented. And because of what that mission is, that's why the benefits that are there. And I think it's just changed so much over the years. You go back to this, 60s, 70s, and, the movies and stuff, and people just see like, oh, the benefits in the military just aren't there. Like, they have just gotten so much drastically better because of what the mission is, that gets overlooked so much. And yeah, some people may join for this reason or that reason, but I always instill in future sailors that the number one reason is the pride in your country. Now, you might have your underlying reasons, but you need to have pride in what you're doing, and know that people around you have pride in you too, and that's important. And then take advantage of the benefits that are there because of what you're doing, and that's awesome. Your story is amazing,
yeah,
Don.
We really thank you, and we appreciate your service to the country, and even coming in and doing this podcast and just shedding light on, even if it was one or two people that heard this and it struck a chord, it means a lot. And
I think the big thing for everybody to know is if you need somebody to help you cut down a tree or help you defuse a nuclear bomb, Don's got your back.
Yes,
100%. That's, literally from ground pounding to negotiating things in Russia in the 80s. Like, are you serious?
Yes,
like,
amazing.
Such a great success story. And, but again, I think it comes down to like the type of things that you were saying, taking a broom away from your boss, being that person to step up. That type of stuff does not fall into your lap. You're not just going to become an influencer on Instagram or YouTube and make millions of dollars. You're not going to have some realty thing fall into your lap. You have to go get it. And I think that you're just case in point to show that if you work hard, you can achieve unbelievable things.
So
yeah, absolutely.
So thank you so much, Don, and I hope you have a great Labor Day weekend.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys.
Because the labor
Best
that
wishes.
you did is totally worth Labor Day. I think you deserve the days off, bud. Thank you, Don, so much.
you.
It was great meeting you.
Yeah, you too. Thanks.
See ya. Wow. Amazing, huh?
That might possibly be the most impressive, not just military story,
Most amazing story.
but life stories I've ever heard. Went to Penn State, dropped out, no big deal, became a lumberjack. Then I decided that I just managed nuclear stuff. Jeez, man.
Yeah,
Wow.
that's awesome.
Wow. I'm really impressed. And again, if you're watching this, make sure to smash that like button. Comment down below if you like that story. And this is somebody that Petty Officer Levesque actually knows. You went to church with him.
Yeah,
Right?
we were in a Bible study.
Yeah. So even if you have questions later about that, about Navy commissioning, or just want to ask Don a question, like I know Don is a very personable person, and we could easily get your questions to him. But these are just more programs that we know about, and we'd be more than happy to talk to you about if you want to know more. Thank you for listening to today's episode. You were just behind the helm. To see this podcast live, check us out on Facebook every Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. If you were listening to this podcast on Apple or Spotify, head on over to our YouTube page to see this show and extra content. If you're on YouTube already, click the video below to see the after show and bonus content that's available right now. No matter what platform you're on, find the link in the description to find the links to all our other platforms. And as always, find it, like it, share it, and follow it. Thanks, guys.